What's good, y'all, and welcome to another vid. So, do you go with good old, reliable and proven SOLCADENS or brand new, fancy pants, unproven Nastya? Furthermore, you have a established faction with established synergies and a recent rework versus unreleased characters and unproven theories. That is SOLCADENS versus Nastya, and that is this topic. Who should you go for if you don't have a SOLCADENS? Is it worth gambling on Nastya instead of SOLCADENS? And for those of you always wondering, okay, yeah, when can we expect these poison units to come? At most within the next 4 to 8 weeks, but to be fair, it wouldn't surprise me if it already happens in 2 to 3. Once again, also the anniversary is going to be within the next 2 months. So yeah, either they happen on the anniversary or maybe there's something even more lurking there. We have to stay vigilant and it remains to be seen. So that begs the question, which is more valuable, which is better? The already established Inferno units on some accounts or the new and yet unreleased units? At the core of this though, once again, the same thing is true now as it was true for Melrick yesterday, and that is, if you already have a SOLCADENS, there should be no real reason for you to pull. Yes, the A1 is great, but the A1 is a perfect use for a Soulstone, if you ever wanted to use one. The A2, obviously, increasing this faction is nice, but having a different lot instead is a better option. And also, for every one burning on the target increases the hero's damage by 5%. Sounds like a crazy amount, but it doesn't necessarily translate all that impressively. And then with the A5, when the 10 damage increases the duration of burnings, honestly, A5 is so far away you don't even really have to think about it.
Our research begins.
Alright, for our very first unbiased comparison, let's compare the trailers. So you've got Nastya's, which is dark, which is grimy, which has epic music, which is scary. And then you got Solca. Yeah, so point to Nastya. SOLCADENS does not have a trailer. Alright, yeah, so it's time for the first test and we're going to just be running them head to head. Same gear on everyone, which is again this already somewhat familiar set of Soulbound Arcana gear. It's going to be the same on everyone. We're going to take the exact same pieces and put it on SOLCADENS, Hex and Phineas, as well as we'll just go through all awakenings, because why not? Just to give you an idea of how important it is to already have established awakenings on these units, because these units have been out longer, you had more chances to pull them. So for now, let's just get our core units out, which is going to be the formation like this, and then we see each other at the end. Alright, so here we are at the first results, 53.4k, 166, 147, 140. We'll just run it one more time to see if there's, again, Numera RNG involved. Yep, and here we go at it again. Numera now up to 185 million, introducing a huge variance, but that's again, once again, part of her kit with her talent, allowing her a 50% chance to do an incredible amounts of damage as well as restore rage. So that's why it's going to fluctuate, but again, if we take a look at the earlier score, this was a score of around 54 million. Now, time for the challenger, or the challenge. Alright, so here we've got our team assembled, but we need to talk about two things. Number one, obviously everybody's A0, and what you can see is Diao. Diao is in the faction of SOLCADENS, but that is just a benefit inherent to the Inferno faction as a whole, because the Inferno faction does have 2 units that can be used for inspiration in their faction, in Diao and Dolores, while the Esotericists, at least as of this moment, have 0 units that have inspiration capabilities on their faction. And also what we're going to be doing is I'll be showing you a run with SOLCADENS A0, but then for the rest of the video we are going to be swapping to SOLCADENS A1, because of the fact that SOLCADENS A1 is pretty much one of the strongest awakenings in the game. If you do have a SOLCADENS, you really want to get it. and also SOLCADENS being out longer just has more of a chance of you having him at A1 already, and then still giving you an idea of how a already somewhat developed SOLCADENS compares to a Nastya. And the reason why we're not awakening Nastya is because it's pretty pointless. It's, at least as of this moment, just Guild Boss 2 utility. Alright, so everybody A0, what is it looking like? Number one, Numera is just cracked at A0. It is unbelievable. This Hex, yes, he is wearing a exclusive artifact. And then you have the comparison between the Lords and SOLCADENS and Nastya, and they are doing similar things. Keep in mind, this is SOLCADENS A0 with the A1. He gets a jump in damage, which Nastya does not gain. But yeah, so there you have it, right? And then also, once again, Vaughn is an absolute beast at A0. This is a Hex in-exclusive. The synergy between these three characters is so strong. While yes, these units work together. Yes, Phineas does give some benefit as long as the Infernals ult and then some extra crit damage. But it just cannot compare to the Poison synergy. But yeah, this is with everybody being A0, will change with the Awakenings. And how does it look if we get SOLCADENS as A1? Alright, so once again, everybody staying A0 and giving you an idea of what this looks like. Obviously, Phineas right here probably got some screwage with the RNG because he didn't really gain any damage. But yeah, for example, for Hex, you can see around a 11 to 12% increase. And the same is true for SOLCADENS, where you have around like a 12 to 13% increase, giving you these numbers if your SOLCADENS is A1. So at A1, SOLCADENS does out damage a Nastya at A0, but then again, you still have Numera and Vaughn and Hex, and Phineas just can't quite compare. And also the important part right here, if you were to take this trio versus the other trio directly into Abyss, the reason why this makes sense is because Phineas has the vulnerable or has the damage reduction, while Numera also has the damage reduction. Though for Phineas, you have to get his exclusive artifact first before it even works. So this is now everybody at A1. So SOLCADENS, Hex, and Phineas at A1. You can see Phineas did close the gap very well, while Hex gained a decent damage increase with SOLCADENS obviously staying the same. But then again, it still isn't quite there yet. This is once again A0 Poison Comp versus A1 everybody, and it still isn't quite there yet. So now for everybody being A1, obviously we're going to keep Nastya at A0 because it's just utility, it doesn't change anything. Now for Vaughn, it also, again, at least here doesn't change anything because the shield break still gets applied to the two allies, which are the two on the field anyway, with the A1 obviously not changing anything, but it does have relevance for Abyss. So the only real change for A1 is that Numera now does 25% increased damage during ultimate, and her damage dealt by Grimthorn spikes and Toxic Surge guarantees a crit, meaning you could technically, which I still wouldn't recommend, run her below 100% crit chance. So right side you have the old run, everybody A0, below that you have the A1s for the Infernals, and now you have A1 on Numera basically with the everyone staying the same. You can see a damage increase of around 15 million, but with Numera we'll have to see a couple more runs to see if it's better or worse. This time Numera performed even worse than her A0 counterpart, so let's do it one more time. So yeah, there you go, there's a damage increase of around 10% through her ultimate or through her A1. As I said earlier already, or in a couple earlier videos, her A1 is by no means as strong as her A3. And yeah, this is what you can see. You can go up to 200 million from around 185. This is really what I love about the Poison comp. We've upgraded them to their highest damage potential, and the highest damage potential is actually the A3, with Numera gaining up to 45% magic rest penetration, 20 permanently, 5% every ult, up to 45%, and with Vaughn gaining the ability to cast Flash Warp, this basic 3 instances of poison back to back. And this is also the cool part, with the A5 for these heroes being more like utility / survivability focused, where Vaughn takes less damage from heroes, and if he targets someone with poisons, he heals himself, which is incredibly useful but by no means required. The same is true for Numera, where she heals herself for 30% of the true damage dealt by her Grimthorn roots. So both of these get survivability options and nothing that truly increases their damage out. Alright, so here we are with the A3 damage numbers, and this time we flipped the order because this is what the Inferno team has to truly beat to show that they are worthwhile. And once again we got Numera at 224, Vaughn gaining around 20 million, with Nastya obviously staying the same, leaving just one question: was there again Numera RNG? Once again Numera RNG strikes again, and yeah, there's the difference. Instead of 224, no, it's now 241, meaning you're getting a jump of around 60 million or a 33% damage increase going from the A0 to the A3. Is there more? The answer is no, not really. It depends on RNG how much you're getting out of her. It's crazy. So the major changes here are the 25 to 50% crit damage increase of Phineas, and the respectively doubling of Hex's ult duration through his A3. So here we are, A3, you can see SOLCADENS doing better. But yeah, Hex definitely getting his well-deserved damage increase, though once again, he's still only on the level of Vaughn. He has his exclusive, yes, it's only at 10. And you can see, obviously also the Phineas damage staying the same because he's only giving the buff to allies, which is also the reason why SOLCADENS' damage went up. So yes, RNG, but not for Hex, but a bit for SOLCADENS and for Phineas, with Phineas gaining more and SOLCADENS losing a bit, overall still staying the same. And you can see there's a clear difference between this A1 plus A3 versus A0 Lord plus A3 combo. Alright, so the A5s in play now to beat the score at the top right there are the ability to have a 50% chance to retain his Viscount's flame stacks after ulting, and on Hex the fact that each draw of a card, so basically that you're cycling faster and then the damage of the Joker and the Fool gets increased. So let's see how they stack up. So we are now in the land of humongous investment, and this is once again the A3 plus A0 versus the A0, A0, A0 everything comp, and this is the result. Hex on A5 going up to 221 million, SOLCADENS staying at his 170 million, and Phineas gaining his damage increase of again another around 120 million. And what you're going to notice is that still the numbers are similar to what you can expect from a A0 double A3 team, even though you have a A1 Lord and then double A5s. So now that you have this as an idea for you on what to expect here, let's do two more things, alright? Number one, we will be introducing the A3 Lord bonus, just so you can see what difference it would truly make to have either Nastya or SOLCADENS at A3. And then also the effect of gear, because as far as I can tell, and it's something I need to prove or want to prove to myself, is I believe the Poison team in itself is worse at taking advantage of better gear. So better said, they don't scale as well with gear, or they scale better with just base stats rather than like the fancy stuff. So important to note here for SOLCADENS, he won't be able to take 100% advantage of this, but that's just the way it goes, unless you were to example bring someone like an Anai along too. So I'll obviously keep track of how many burn stacks there are to give you an idea of how many burn stacks truly work in this 3 comp. Just know that he won't be able to take full advantage. So here you go, obviously a big jump in SOLCADENS' damage, now up to 190 million. And this obviously puts this way closer in line to, once again, keep in mind this A0, A3, A3 team versus A3, A5, A5. Giving us one last thing, and that is upgrading Nastya. So Nastya's A3 is the ability to increase acute poisoning from 40 to 70% if there's only one target in range, meaning single target. So this is the result of upgrading Nastya to A3, and what I find very interesting, or even to an extent exciting, is the fact that the damage increase really isn't all that great. Yes, going from a 1.4x to a 1.7x multiplier sounds incredibly amazing, but overall it truly isn't as important as this awakening might make it seem. So the need to get an A3 Nastya for her to perform on the level that she does truly is not there. The whole faction, Esotericis as a whole, feels like this Esotericis Poison Comp feels like a one and done, pull them once, you're pretty much good to go type of scenario, with, I guess you could say, Numera's A3 being the true exception. So to test this last theory of mine, let's give them pretty much some of the best gear you can find in this game. We're talking perfect 4 stats on pretty much everything, as well as obviously the maxed out exclusive, with them being at the highest damage dealing awakening. So once again, you can see we have these 4 stats right here. And then obviously the Blight Callers for the damage, and the same is true for Numera. Also, all of them will be getting the Wings of Grace buff. So 327 million on Numera, 214 on Vaughn, and 211 on Nastya is what is meant to be beaten score-wise. Once again, a refresher on the damage of the A3s. Obviously, this is before the Lord, but the increase would be like, what, 15 million on both of them, with like 11 on her. So you can see around a 80 million, 50 million, 80, 60, 60, 80 million damage increase from the gear. Now let's see how the Infernals compare. So yeah, again, Numera strikes, you can see another damage increase, so I would say the maximum is probably like 340 million. So here are the results with everything pretty much maxed out. So A3 SOLCADENS, A5 Double Trouble, Phineas and Hex, as well as maxed out Hex exclusive, giving you results that look something like this. Important to note here, I've seen SOLCADENS go as high as 300 million. So yeah, that is also a possibility, with Hex also being able to make it over 300 million. So Hex at A5 with maxed out exclusive is getting closer to that Numera realm of damage, with SOLCADENS completely outstripping a Nastya when it comes to just raw single target performance, with him being at A3. And then Phineas, yes, he gains a bit of damage. Overall, it's again around make it a 33% increase through gear alone, but still 166 million can't quite compare to the Poison Squad. But yeah, this is what you can get if you were to fully invest in everything. And what your main takeaway should be, I guess everybody makes the most out of the gear. Like, there isn't really a super big difference between what these heroes gain, besides SOLCADENS. SOLCADENS does benefit very well from having higher gear stats and substats. And on that note also, yeah, the Poison Squad, so this is pretty much the way you can imagine these curves, as in, so this is like gear level versus power, with the Poison Squad just starting higher, and then both of them kind of like ending at the same place gear wise, but the Poison Squad, it just starts higher versus the Inferno Squad or other units not being able to make as much out of lower quality gear. Alright, now the Abyss 1 game plan. We're not going to be focusing on the physical side of things, because if you're not making it through the physical side of things anyway, that would make the whole Infernal / Esotericis comp useless. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to go with the healers, so I don't have to worry about the healing. And then we'll also be bringing in, you can see, Kikiri and Wukong just to help us get through the shields. And then what we can compare here is going to be burst damage between the two teams against the 10 and 27 million shield respectively, starting from SOLCADENS A1 with everybody, with Phineas and Hex being A0, and then SOLCADENS at, you get the deal, right? And also what we might have to do is introduce Setram. So maybe Yuri has to go and Setram has to go in to simulate the Vaughn shield break, which is something you might not always be able to afford, but enough of that. The important part, what you see, is them in good gear. So 2 attack pieces, 1 crit damage piece with full on crit rate, crit damage left side gear, as well as their artifact against the 10 and 27 million shield, and then either going to the overpowered gear if necessary, or seeing which kind of awakenings do you need to stand a chance at breaking that last 27 million shield. Alright, it's time for our first encounter with the shield. A0 everyone out of the poison comp with non-ridiculous gear. Let's see how this goes. So Drake's Bellow obviously happens. We don't really have to do anything too much here. And then we got our Meteoric Deluge. We let Meteoric Deluge happen. Hope that Kigiri survives this. He should. Might as well just go in with another ult here. And then right here, everything is set. So we have over 30 poison stacks. We have the magic rest down. There should be nothing stopping us from just using Numera's ultimate right here. So let's check out that burst damage. Big burst. Big burst. There you go. So everybody A0, the 10 million damage shield seems to pose no problem. How far can we get into the 27? Can we already break it at A0? Alright, so here we are closing in on the second magic shield, and Kigiri sometimes is just a truly special person. We almost lost him there. I don't know how he's still alive. Don't ask me. And yeah, let's see how we're doing here against the shield. But what you are going to be noticing is the fact that our units currently aren't ult ready, right? So Nunea and Nastya and Vaughn currently aren't ult ready, and this is something that might cause a bit of frustration for you, and that is the RNG involved with these heroes having their auto ults ready in time for you. Though let's check out the burst of Numera. You can see we were able to delete around 8 million. And then before the shield runs out, we should at least see one rotation of the auto ultimates. So there we go. We have a rotation of the auto ultimates. It is just slightly too late to give us a true idea. So let's try and see if we can include 20% rage regen on these characters if they can break the shield at A0, because there was around 3 million left on said shield. Alright, once again, time for the magic shield, this time with 20% rage regen on both Vaughn and Nastya, with no crazy gear requirements if this were to succeed. So let's see what it actually ends up being. So obviously here we go into the shield, but what we are going to be doing is we'll wait until Nastya ults again so that she refreshes the magic death down. Because we're not really in super big of a rush, and instead of that running out of, or instead of Nunea running out of it mid-ult, it is better if you were to obviously have it active. And you can see that there truly isn't too much of a difference, at least with like a reasonable amount of gear, none like crazy left side gear. A0 isn't quite there. It's close, but something like maybe A1 Vaughn, A1 Numera, A3 Numera would probably definitely put you over the edge. But just with A0s, you don't really stand a chance breaking that 26 million damage shield. So just for those of you curious, here are the numbers: Kigiri 96, Numera 40, Nastya 38, Vaughn also 38, and then Yuri down there, as well as Wukong in this kind of same area. Alright, so time for the first magical shield for our Infernal squad, giving us the ability to then trigger Hex. Hex currently not A3, so I just trigger him with Drake's Bellow, which you could say is rather late. And then right here we obviously get the Meteoric Deluge, which we want to use Kigiri's ult for so that he doesn't die. We can trigger Phineas's ultimate. So Phineas gets the stat boost and increased attack, meaning SOLCADENS also gains the stat boost because he takes the attack and crit damage values from the allies. So there we go. And then he should have his ultimate ready by the time the shield pops up right here, and just beautifully throw it onto it. There you go. And then burst damage wise, you can see the shield breaks. Important to note here, you do not need a SOLCADENS A1 to break the very first magic shield. SOLCADENS A1 really here is more of a bonus, and it also helps with the other side, so with the physical side of things. Alright, once again time for Meteoric Deluge on our way to the 26 million damage shield. And then here again we block with Kigiri, we can activate Phineas a bit earlier so that we have the stat boost ready for SOLCADENS. SOLCADENS can start off his ultimate. Wukong dying here is honestly fine, obviously not optimal. Let's see, are we at least able to keep our whole team alive just for this bit of a... Yep, alright, nice. So we should at least see the impact that our units have on the 27 million damage shield. Yeah, who needs Fuzzy? We just need to see the damage. Okay, there we go. So 19, 14, 13, 11, 8, 7, 5, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, none broken. So overall, surprisingly enough, depending on if you were expecting it or if you weren't expecting it, it is way closer when it comes to raw burst damage, though sustained damage, which you see on the shield. So right here you see we obviously fade the shield, which gives us the damage breakdown. But what you're going to see is that the damage output wasn't as high on this team. So let's have a look at the numbers. Kigiri was doing similar, SOLCADENS was doing similar, Wukong was doing similar, but then Phineas and Hex, they just don't perform on the same level of sustained damage as a Numera and a Vaughn respectively. But besides that, it is still pretty close. Both teams have the ability to take out the magic shield. You just need a couple more awakenings. And yeah, overall, there isn't one of them being owed so much superior to the other. And one of them obviously has triple ults you can cast, and the other team has the ultimates that are auto. So there is a bit of frustration on Nastya's part, though. Now let's get to the conclusion. Alright, now for the final conclusion part of this video. So, when it just comes to Abyss, both perform equally well. Again, also you having a higher time or a longer time frame for you to already obtain the earlier Inferno units, meaning if you already have a base to work with. And for Nastya to truly work, what you really are going to need is a Vaughn. And outside of a Vaughn, a Numera is also pretty much up there. Yes, as we've seen in the earlier test, it is not as important for you to have these units on high awakenings, so you just need to pull them one each. But then again, RNG is RNG, and you might not walk away with the trio of them. So SOLCADENS obviously has the advantage here because you already have established Inferno units. Now let's talk about unit potential, unit usages and such. So just from a raw burst perspective, both teams are pretty much equal. The difference is in the sustained amount of damage and the damage they can do over time. Those being way higher in the poison comp, especially starting from or with less awakening investment or even with less gear investment. Now, two things we also need to compare is the Lord bonus. SOLCADENS' Lord bonus, same with the 15%, only works when he casts his ultimate. So only upon casting his ultimate do the team members also gain the penetration increase and the 30% extra damage to elites and bosses. It is bound upon him being on the field. If SOLCADENS is not on the field, the only thing you're getting is a 15% damage bonus. Nastya, on the other hand, gives the 15% damage bonus, gives you a 25% reduction in skill cost, as any other esotericist would. And then also on top of that, you have this permanently active buff or damage buff, depending on how many debuffs the target has. This one works with or without her on the field. Obviously with her on the field you have an easier time because she can do 3 different ones, which is poisoning, magic down, and acute poisoning. But yeah, so the more debuffs there are, the more damage. This is, if you can stack it, if you have between like 6 to 8 debuffs, the highest damaging Lord skill in the entire game, bar none. And also the importance here is, imagine Nastya as a Lord for a Gear Rate 1 comp. Yeah, now this might sound a bit outrageous, but you can bring cultists as well as esotericists, and then the esotericists are going to be benefiting from the debuffs the cultists are applying. Like for example, a Dahlia with the poisons, a Honora with the slow or the winter spites. So she can also be used as a AoE damage increasing Lord, even though she herself is only single target. So that's the Lord buffs between the two. And then from raw damage potential, both of them are probably the highest damage dealing Lords in this game as of this moment. I guess you could count Ryger in there too, but Ryger not quite to the same extreme. And from usefulness, it's also a bit hard to say, because what SOLCADENS brings is obviously the burns, so the debuff side of things, while she brings poisons. SOLCADENS has the ability to apply vulnerabilities, while she can apply something that is a bit more of a rare debuff, and that is the magic rest reduction. So if you bring a SOLCADENS and a Volker, both debuffs clash, but if you bring a Volker and a Nastya, you can stack the vulnerability together with the magic rest reduction. Reason why you wouldn't bring SOLCADENS and her at the same time is just because they are too similar kit-wise. Yeah, other things to note, obviously Nastya has the advantage when it comes to true damage. She applies true damage, SOLCADENS does not. You also gain this fancy poison immunity, which I guess is useful for Gear Dungeon 2, but it truly shouldn't move the needle in any direction. And outside of that, honestly, awakening-wise, SOLCADENS has the clear advantage on the A3, while Nastya has the advantage on the SOLCADENS advantage on A1, Nastya advantage on A3. And this one, the A5 on Nastya, is absolutely disgusting, with the A5 on SOLCADENS not being as strong as the A5 on Nastya. So Nastya A5, the 25% increased damage to targets inflicted with poison. At least it's only for the ultimate. At least it's only for the ultimate instead of a permanent buff. So yeah, what you really would, I mean, honestly, SOLCADENS is amazing, don't get me wrong. But Nastya has more potential and also more use cases outside of the fields in which SOLCADENS already works. I can see her being more of a future-proof hero than a SOLCADENS, and also with her being the third in the faction, it stands to reason that the Infernates might also get a third Lord in the future who could be superior to SOLCADENS. So that just from that perspective, and then something else we obviously have to at last go about is the drop chances, the rates of you actually summoning these lords. So for this last part right here, we have SOLCADENS' rate. SOLCADENS this weekend is going to be a 52.6% chance of you obtaining him upon summoning a Ancient Lord. And on Nastya's banner, because Nastya is going to be a extra Lord getting into the pool, the chance of her, even though she's getting a rate up, is going to be slightly reduced. So you're going to have a 51.2% chance. In both cases, it is pretty much a coin flip, a 50-50. So what is my recommendation for you? Honestly, once again, if you have a SOLCADENS, it is a easy skip. The SOLCADENS awakenings aren't truly worth it. And from a meta / future-proof standpoint, I would rate Nastya way higher than SOLCADENS in terms of how much you want her. Though you have to keep in mind you'll have to go out and invest those blues in, at minimum, I would say Vaughn. Vaughn and Nastya go hand in hand because Vaughn applies 2 further stacks of poisons. Together with Nastya, they can each boost themselves to their full potential, with Vaughn having the highest damage once there's 30 stacks of poisons, and then Nastya also only capping at 30 stacks, though Vaughn's damage increase is based upon poisons either expiring or getting consumed by, for example, Numera. But yeah, if you're going the route of Nastya, just know that you at minimum have to summon one of Vaughn and Numera each before you can truly unlock her potential, and SOLCADENS already works based on you having a Hex or a Phineas. Yeah, I think that has been already it, and we see each other in the next one. Peace!